Prime Minister Justin Trudeau survived a coup attempt to remove him as Liberal Party leader, but his troubles are far from over. Now, to chat about this in more detail is Sun political columnist Brian Lilley, who joins us once again from Toronto. Now, Brian, apparently MPs are now calling for a secret ballot vote on his future. Will they actually get one?
I don't think so. Uh, they're calling for it, but who in the Liberal Party apparatus is going to say, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's try and kill the boss, figuratively speaking, of course. Let's try and kill the boss. They failed last week, but let's try again. What's the old line? If you come for the king, you best not miss. Well, they missed last week. Do you think that the caucus chair is going to suddenly say, yes, let's have a secret ballot vote? And look, Justin Trudeau is going to continue to have people chirping at him from the sidelines. And we've seen some of them become more vocal, including New Brunswick Liberal MP Wayne Long, Helena Jassic, an Ontario former Liberal cabinet minister at the Ontario level, now in the federal Liberals. She's speaking out. So more people are speaking out. More people are chirping at the Prime Minister. But that coup attempt last week really did fail. And so there's very little that is going to change moving forward.
Now, while all of this drama is playing out, the House of Commons, Brian, is still not functioning. Are MPs still debating the government's refusal to hand over documents in the Green Slush Fund scandal?
They really are. And so this has been going on since October 2nd. And, from my vantage point, I don't see an end to this. And eventually it will end. Either debate will just collapse, which will happen, or the government will find a partner to move closure on this. But here's the kicker, Hal. So they've been debating the government's refusal to hand over the documents in the Green Slush Fund since October 2nd. There was the week off over Thanksgiving, but other than that, the entire month of October is spent debating why won't the government hand over documents ordered by Parliament, ordered by the Speaker of the House of Commons, who is elected as a Liberal. Why won't they hand them over? This is a very serious issue. One of the powers that MPs have is that they can demand the production of papers. And any documents related to a government program, they can say, we need to see them. And if a majority of the House votes for that, the government is compelled to hand them over. But the Trudeau government's refusing, just like they did in the Winnipeg lab scandal. They refused to do the same. In fact, they eventually took the Speaker of the House of Commons to court to try and keep that secret. How bad are things in this Green Slush Fund, where I believe there were 90 different conflicts of interest documented by the Auditor General? Whistleblowers said more than $40 million spent improperly, tens of millions of dollars sent out to companies with links to the board members or the employees, all of whom were Liberal appointees. How bad are the documents that they would rather shut down the entire operation of the House of Commons, at least when it comes to government business, rather than turn the documents over? But let's say that tomorrow the Bloc or the NDP say, you know what, we'll work with the Liberals, we'll shut down debate on this. Well, immediately after that happens, they start debate on a second question of privilege. And that's related to Randy Boissonnault and the fact that he said he was not doing any government business or any business with his former company while he was in cabinet. Now we know that's not true. The whole Randy versus the other Randy thing that we saw a little while ago, Boissonnault was doing business from a cabinet retreat in Vancouver, for goodness sakes. While he was in cabinet, he's doing business with his old business partner who's trying to do business with the government. All of this stinks to high heaven. That is the second question of privilege. We could be going months. So I wouldn't be shocked if we see the government prorogue Parliament, although I would have done it last week if I were them. In fact, if they were smart, they would have done it last June, but they never got to that point. So, Parliament is effectively not functioning. The House of Commons has not dealt with government business since the 1st of October.
Brian, many people are naming names on social media, especially X, it's exploding right now, of the so-called traitors or those in government involved in foreign interference. What legally can you tell us at this point?
Well, the reason some media outlets aren't talking about it is they don't like the story. And the reason other media outlets aren't talking about it is lawyers getting in the way and saying, well, lawyers for the company who are trying to make sure that the media outlet doesn't get sued, saying, ooh, you've got to be careful of that, got to be careful of this. So there was a news conference held by independent MP Kevin Vaughan of Toronto with Sam Cooper, formerly of Global News, now operates an online outfit called The Bureau. Sam has written several books on China. Also there were Michelle Junokatsuya, former CSIS officer who worked the Asian desk back in the 90s and early 2000s. He's long been a media commentator. I've talked to and dealt with Michelle Junokatsuya for years. Charles Burton was there. He's a former academic who, has a long history, former diplomat for Canada in China, knows the issue very well. They held a news conference where they said names will be named. And what they said, there wasn't a lot of shock, but people are still being careful. He named current Liberal Senator Wu and said that he is allegedly dealing with an organization with ties to China. Former Conservative Senator Victor O, also named as working with this committee that works on behalf of Beijing. That's the allegation. But then that China tried to help Liberal MP Parm Bains. Parm Bains ran against and defeated Kenny Chiu. Kenny Chiu has long said that he was a target of foreign interference by China. He's given me details on that. I'm sure you've spoken to him as well. He has laid it all out. Now, when I've asked Kenny Chiu, do you think Parm Bains was part of this? He says not on purpose, not wittingly, but he may have benefited from it. That the Chinese government may have decided we want this liberal who has no Chinese heritage, no Chinese ties, over Kenny Chiu, who's from Hong Kong and who is questioning Beijing. So that's one allegation, but the most damning one for the Trudeau government, and they won't talk about it, is the allegation that Mary Ng, currently the trade minister, is someone who was an unwitting participant. That means that she didn't know, but that she was the beneficiary of China going in and saying, we want that person elected. Mary Ng is someone who came from here, where I am at Queen's Park, the Ontario legislature. She was part of the McGuinty-Wynne government over the years before moving up to Parliament Hill, working in the PMO, and then running for her own seat when John McCallum stepped down. So those are the allegations. What's true, what's not, we don't know. People aren't talking. They're just trying to whistle past this. But when you've got allegations like that, I don't know. Somebody has to look into them, and of course we know that the Prime Minister, he has wanted to do everything he could since 2019 to try and not talk about foreign interference unless it's to his political benefit.
Brian, we've seen a lot of messaging from Liberals around the issue of Pierre Poilievre and a security clearance. Now, Liberal MPs obviously think this is a serious issue. Could this potentially harm Poilievre in the minds of voters? What are your thoughts?
Well, the Liberals are hoping it will. Again, this goes to what I just said, that Justin Trudeau only raises the issue of foreign interference if he thinks it can benefit him. The whole issue around being very public and vocal about foreign interference by India, but not by China. Why was he so vocal and out front on the issue of foreign interference with India? Because he hopes that he will be able to gain votes in the Sikh community, in particular with a very active, small but active base of people who support the Khalistani cause. And so he campaigns against Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi in Canada to try and win votes with that community. And that will get the Khalistani vote, but it will also be some wider sympathy within the Sikh community because they're not fans of Modi, and I don't blame them. Modi runs a Hindu nationalist government, and so if I were Sikh, I'd probably not be a particular fan either. But that's why Trudeau is so hard and out front on the issue of India. On the issue of China, he's been much more quiet and behind the scenes because, well, China has tried to aid and abet the Liberal Party in winning the last two elections. So then we get to Poilievre. And what's the claim there? Well, he won't get a security clearance. Poilievre's been up front. He says he won't get the security clearance because then he can't talk about it. And if he finds out that there are actors within his party, he can't do anything about it. That's a position that's been upheld by David McGuinty, the Liberal who chairs the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians. That's what Katie Telford, Justin Trudeau's own chief of staff, testified on the stand at the Hogue Commission. So all of this is going on, but the Liberals know that they can play to their true and on base online and say, Pierre Poilievre can't pass a security clearance. Of course, he already has when he was minister. And other people in the Conservative Party, his chief of staff, other MPs have that clearance. They can see this information. Justin Trudeau has seen all this information since 2019. What's he done about it? Nothing. In 2019, before the election, he was told about concerns CSIS had about Han Dong. What did he do? He said, oh, that's interesting. Let him run. He became elected. The only thing they did was stop him from going on the Canada-China Committee. Then they let him run again in 2021. It wasn't until March of 2023 when Dom's name was put out in a media report that he ended up leaving the Liberal caucus. And Trudeau has done nothing to deal with that. His government had a 54-day waiting period to approve a warrant to surveil a top Liberal fundraiser and organizer in the Toronto area, something CSIS said hurt the investigation. So Justin Trudeau has done everything he can to stop Canadians from learning more about foreign interference. Pierre Poilievre has said one thing repeatedly: release all the names. Tell us who they are. Trudeau says, oh, no, we can't do that. And really, Pierre Poilievre should get the security clearance and then deal with it by lying to people, making up stories about why somebody can't run if they're not qualified.
Some difference in polling lately. Several polling firms say the Conservative lead is as high as 22% over the Liberals, but others say it's just 12 to 13 points. Brian, why the discrepancy?
Yeah, so Nanos is the polling firm that keeps coming out with 12, 13, 15 points. Most of the others are up around 20 to 22 points. And I really don't know the difference. Nanos is a longstanding pollster. He's been used by major media outlets. He's not someone that I've dealt with, and I've dealt with many of the big polling firms over the years, Ipsos, Abacus, different firms along the way. Never really dealt with Nanos. So I can't say why he's getting a different number, but he's consistently getting a different number. Whereas the majority, Campaign Research, Palace, Abacus, Leger, another firm I've dealt with for years, they're all getting in that 20 to 22 range or just below 20. So, we'll have to wait and see what the, if one of them is an outlier or not. But bottom line, Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives have a significant lead over Justin Trudeau and the Liberals, and they have for more than a year now, and that hasn't changed. I don't see the Liberals being able to do anything to change that. I think they're going to try, and we'll have to see if they're successful.
The Bloc Québécois set a deadline of today for the Liberals to meet their demands. Now, Brian, that hasn't happened, so Bloc leader Yves-François Blanchet says they're ready to look at toppling the Trudeau Liberals. But you don't really believe that will happen, do you?
No, I don't. And are you a fan of the old movie A Christmas Story? Remember, the kid asking Santa for the Red Ryder BB gun. Yeah. There's the little brother that chases Ralphie around all the time trying to catch up. Well, that's Jagmeet Singh in the current parliament. He's the little brother trying to catch up, saying, hey, me too, me too. Singh was just out talking about another issue. I think we'll talk about that in a moment. But he was asked about bringing down the Trudeau government. Oh, no, we don't want to do that. Yeah, sure, he ripped up his supply and confidence agreement, but he's going to keep voting him in power. It takes all three parties to vote the Trudeau Liberals out of office, and all three parties aren't there right now. The Bloc is getting there. The Conservatives have been there for a while, and the NDP, they don't have the money to run an election campaign, and they're not doing well in the polls. In fact, they're really hurting.
And federal NDP leader Jagmeet Singh has gone on record saying he doesn't think there's any point in attacking the Liberals. There's a bit of a surprise. In fact, he announced his next Opposition Day motion, Brian, will be about the Conservatives and abortion.
Yes. So, Opposition Day motions are normally about the government. You're trying to hold the government to account. Instead, Jagmeet Singh is going to hold the opposition leader to account. And they're claiming that they're trying to import U.S. politics, Hal. That's all this is. And of course, down in the United States, the claim is that Donald Trump, after Roe v. Wade was overturned, if he wins again, he will bring in a national abortion ban. which Trump has said that's not something he's going to do. He's leaving it up to the states to sort this out, which is something conservatives in the United States have been saying for years. But, Singh's using what's happening south of the border, dragging it up to Canada, and then saying, well, look at all the pro-lifers in the Conservative caucus. Yeah, there are some. Guess what? There's pro-lifers in every walk of Canadian life. It's about a third of the population or more, depending on the poll, or depending on how you phrase that term and that question. So it's no shock that there are many in the Conservative caucus, but Pierre Poilievre has been clear. He has no plans to legislate on abortion, even though we have no laws in this country at all. But Singh points to bills past and current and motions to say, oh, look, he voted against choice. Two of them were bills to add pregnancy as an aggravating factor. When someone's charged with assault. So if you attack, you're beating up a woman and she's pregnant, that should be an aggravating factor. The bills in question, both of which were brought forward by Conservative MP Kathy Wagenthal from Saskatchewan, neither of them mentioned abortion. There was no attempt to limit abortion. But the NDP and the Trudeau Liberals, by the way, have both claimed these are anti-choice bills. I didn't know that beating pregnant women was considered pro-choice. If that's pro-choice, count me out. And I think the vast majority of Canadians would see that. But that's the kind of sleight of hand games they're trying to play. So yeah, Jagmeet Singh and the NDP are going all in. They're pointing to a Conservative MP that went to an evangelical church in Florida, and they say it's an anti-choice church. The bald guy standing next to Jagmeet Singh at his Toronto news conference is a serial candidate and serial loser for New Democratic causes named Norm Di Pasquale. The only thing Norm Di Pasquale ever won was election to the Toronto District Catholic School Board. Last time I checked, the Catholic Church is still against abortion. And by the way, the Sikh religion, to which Singh obviously adheres to, not a fan of abortion either. So he's willing to play all kinds of games with this. It's really nasty and disturbing politics.
Political columnist with The Sun, Brian Lilley, thanks so much for joining us today from Toronto.
Thank you, Hal.